the risk that they talk about is another offer, and the offer that they present isn't actually dealt with, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, for sure.
And I realised something, because the lawyers or barristers or prosecution, all of that. Oh, by the way, is the call recorded?
It is recorded. That's okay with you?
Oh yeah, of course. So the prosecution, the barristers, lawyers, whatever you want to call it, they're all in the same club, and it makes sense, especially in that movie when they say you're all in on it, because it's like they don't do anything about it when they say, oh, there's a risk. Now they may not have any grounds for the risk other than their own assumptions. So in a way, there's certainly the opportunity to put a question forward, and the question that I think I was talking about is if they say, oh, there's been a breach, or there's a risk, a flight risk, you can't leave the country, you can't do this or you can't do that. There needs to be like a question that comes up that basically goes, on what grounds is one subject to such risks? And the barrister doesn't ask those questions. You actually, I mean, if it ever happened, like, to me again, I mean, that'd be highly unlikely, if anything. I wouldn't put myself in that situation again. But if you ever appointing a barrister or a lawyer or whatever to work with you, you wanna be guiding them and talking to them and say, if there is a so-called risk that doesn't allow you to, receive bail or whatever it may be, it's just another excuse why they want to hold you. So there needs to be a question, and the question is, it can be many. It can be many things. The question is, it happens, I think, at those hearings, which I did hear it before, and they kind of dismiss it and saying, oh, they're either investigating this further or whatever. But I believe there is a window for a question to be asked, and the question can be, it depends on why it's been denied, why they're going, they're denying you bail or whatever it is that they believe there's a risk, in a sense. Now, a risk is just another word for a claim that's been put forward. And a reason why they can keep one captive, and for some reason that reason isn't examined. In a lot of cases, I believe I examined it to a point, but not enough at that time. So and that was how it was for me. But if I was to do it differently, I would definitely get the barrister to ask a question, either on what grounds, is there a signed agreement between me and them on a piece of paper, that before the judge, basically that verifies their claim that they're bringing forward there. Yeah. So that's kind of what I was pondering on about that one. Does that sort of, I don't know, is there anything there you want to add to that?
Well, yeah. You said that you indicated that sometimes that they could use risk to hold another nail in the coffin, I believe you said, to be able to hold one, often on, I think you said no evidence because it's not examined. I think you said something to that effect.
Oh, look,
and
they might come up with an excuse or something like, there's a risk, a flight risk that can't leave the country, leave your passports and fucking, I don't know, whatever other bullshit they want to fucking throw in.
Right. Right. So I'm glad you said that. So it sounds to me like you're almost seeing the risk side of things quite a bit differently than you were before.
I see it's another pawn on the chess game, and it's kind of like,
Yes.
here's
Yes.
another offer, and if you
Yeah.
don't deal with
Okay. Sure.
that offer can in some way restrict you or inconvenience you a little bit more. That's
Sure.
all I'm trying to say.
Sh-
That
Sure.
if
Sure.
you
So
don't deal with it, that
right.
and it needs to be dealt with before the judge. And as I
That's
said,
right.
unless you're talking to the barrister about this, I feel that it will be dealt with. Other than that, it'll just be washed over, if you know what I'm saying.
Okay, beautiful. So when you say deal with it, that's, I believe, what I've been talking about this whole time. And I only got to this because Brother Frank brought up how basically what was going on with you was remand. I was totally and wholly unfamiliar with the risk side of things. I knew it was all about safety with the police, safety in the courts. So when risk came about and remand came about, it just plugged in a whole lot from me that was missing. The
Yep.
reason I'm bringing up the risk is because it seems to be their beautiful workaround for pretrial punishment, even if they have no case. Okay, so that's the only reason why I was bringing a little more attention to it, because you went through it. It helped me learn. So I was just seeing if you had gotten a chance to see it too, because I thought it would be such an interesting aspect to examine together, seeing as how you went through it, and that's what pushed me to examine it. Frank and I both, and to me, if we're talking court study, then yes, it still fits in the narrative. There are still questions, like you said, to deal with it. There's beautiful questions that nobody's talking about claiming or being possessive still.
It's
You
all
know what I
good,
mean?
brother. Go on.
It's just talking about asking, like you said, what grounds. I think you may be alluding to like what's called factual grounds, and that would be a great place, if that's what you're saying, to be asking about. There's ways to ask about it in a more procedurally beautiful way that forces the court to hear it and say something about it. So a bigger part of what I'm saying too, the only place I differ with pure possession is that I do believe possession is the focus of a lot of questions and the focus of a lot of things said in there. But then I believe possession is just used as a pronoun sometimes, and the full offer still needs to be examined. That's the only place that I differ just slightly on possession. That's it.
If I'm hearing you correctly, so when you say the full offer needs to be examined, what do you mean by that?
Okay, what a great question. So, for instance, you're asking about the specific risk. Okay, so I would love to know what the lawyer for you said in regard to questioning the risk at all. Okay, because all we're talking about is, like you said, there's really weak grounds, but they're starting with a conclusion. They're saying he is a risk. So this is the offer. To me, this is the offer. You're a risk, and we say you are based on a belief, based on a testimony, based on an allegation, whatever it is. It's not tested yet, but we believe based off of this that you are a risk for this exact specific future issue. They name a specific future thing that they're scared of for you, and all they did was give you a label based on whatever they were handed. Okay, so in the middle of all that, that's where the offer is to be examined. In the middle of that, before they say, indeed, he's a risk, okay, based on this bullshit that's not even tested, that's where the offer needs to be examined. So,
Yeah.
so I actually had a list of questions based on your specific situation, because I like to be specific. I like to be, you know what I mean? So I actually have a list of questions that if I were the lawyer or I were going against something like that, I, this is what I would ask, or this is what I'd be surprised if the lawyer's not asking about. Okay. So I would have said, or the lawyer could have said, what exactly, this is how I examine the risk. You said, deal with the risk. How do you examine the risk? I mean, the offer. What is the offer? How do you examine it? So to me, this is what it means. because they're saying that there's a risk. So you get them to identify the risk that they're talking about. You just ask them, hey, what exact risk is being alleged? Is it a flight? Is it further offending, a danger, or witness interference?
Well,
Okay.
they've already stated that.
Sure, brother. I'm coming in like it's the first hearing. At different hearings, there could have been different parts of these things, parts of risk questioned. This is just the step one where I would have started is all. You see
I'll
what I'm
just
saying?
pause.
You went,
I'll just pause you for a second.
please go ahead.
I feel that the only time the risk so-called question would be open to it would be at the time of bail, when they offer bail. That's really the only time that they that comes into play. That's how I see it. I could be mistaken, but that's how I see it.
Okay. So the first time you saw the judge was how long after you were in jail? When they first brought you in, how long was it
Oh,
before you saw the judge?
well, I'd say, I don't know, but they keep you whatever there, what, about 5-6 months.
So
Look,
before you saw the
approximately. It doesn't
so
matter so
before
much
you saw the
time. I think that they work out when's the next hearing where they can go into cross-examination of the claimant, and then after they've done all that, then they then talk about whether bail should be a possibility or not. That's how I may have experienced it.
are you saying that they grabbed you after the second interrogation and held you in there without seeing a judge, without any bail hearing or remand hearing at all?
No,
Um,
I'll try to paint a picture. Like, so I'm already in say, for example, the hearing. They go into the hearing. They cross-examine the complainant, right? So
yeah.
I'm I'm in court. I'm not really saying anything. I'm just in court, right? I'm just listening to all of this stuff that's going on. Then
This is the
after
first court hearing. The first
yeah,
court hearing.
the first court hearing can be some
And this
months
is
after.
this is after
Yeah.
you've been in jail for how long?
Oh, it could be 3 months, 5 months, 6 months. It can be around, yeah, so those sort of months. So when you go into say that hearing, it's after there's that hearing that there's that possibility of a bail. In other words, say after say 3 months or 4 months or 5 months, whatever, they say, right, there's now we can discuss if you want to go to bail, because the next if there's a trial date on some cases, there'll be a trial. So then they say, oh, the trial will be set for another year or 6 months or whatever, or 12 months. So they then can talk about bail. So they can either take you out of jail in that time, or they leave you in jail. Depends on on whether the so-called questions that they're or their statements, such as the risk, so to speak, has been dealt with. If it hasn't been dealt with, well, you most probably just go back to jail. That's all. In other words, you go from court back to the gallows, so to speak. Yeah.
So that's the first bail hearing. You're saying it didn't happen. The very first bail hearing happened after 7 months.
Well, the
And you're
very first time, like is happens basically. There's two of them. There's two opportunities for bail. How I experienced it. The very first time was when you're hearing all these charges coming against you, and then they're asking for bail, and it gets rejected straight away, and they don't give any real reason. I think that, hang on, they I look, as far as initially, the bail is always, how I see it, is always rejected in a lot of ways. Like I know someone just recently, and it's funny, mate. I'm not joking. This is crazy, but I know recently someone I know, he was seeing a girl, and the same thing happened. It's an epidemic down here, mate. I'm telling you. And he's in jail now. He did the same thing. He applied. You can pretty much. So what happens is they grab you. Initially, they grab you, and then they throw you straight into the box straight away, right? And then you go and see a judge possibly in about 3 or 4 days' time. And when you go, so you're in the box. You go to I call it the box, the jail, whatever you want to call it, and then a lawyer or someone is appointed to you, and they say, oh, do you want to ask for bail? Now, initially, you're in a bit of a state of like, oh shit, all this stuff has suddenly hit you, and you kind of go, yes, yeah, I'll go for bail. But I don't think it's I don't know personally. The chances are unlikely initially. Initially, when you first go in, I would, this is how I see it, and I could be mistaken. I would say that initially it's unlikely, especially with indictable whatever offences, that you're going to receive bail. Especially in this part of the world with the way domestic violence is, it's out of control, and they'll just go bail denied, and straight into the
Okay. So 2 quick points. One about that, and then one question. I do believe it's an epidemic down there, but I believe it's because none of y'all are handling risk by yourself, and you're allowing an attorney to jump straight past this risk.